I'm Jess Dakotas.
And I'm Nick Colziel. Welcome to That Sounds Terrifying, the podcast where we share terrifying stories, we share listener experiences, and we visit virtually some of the most haunted places in the United States and the world. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of That Sounds Terrifying. Super excited today because Jess and I are going to tell you a couple tales. Jess has two, I have one. What are these all about, Jess? I'm totally excited.
Today I know that you have a creepy tale about a skinwalker. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to tell a tale. Tell a tale.
Tale a tale.
Tell a tale. I'm going to tell a tale about a Ouija board. This is a true story that happened to me when I was in fifth grade. And then I have a story that I found on Reddit that I thought was super creepy and wanted to share.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
kind of what happened with me too. Found my story on Reddit and super excited about the Ouija board story because you kind of hinted at it during social media. So you're like, I'm going to tell that on the show, which is
Oh, yeah,
great.
for sure.
So
Yeah.
anybody else has any stories they want to share and be featured on an episode, please send them in.
Yeah, we have more guests coming, and we would love to have you as one of them. Again, you can be anonymous if you'd like, but either way, we just would love some more stories, and we need more stories. So send them along, please.
Yeah, let's keep this terrifying train going.
Hmm. So, Nick, you gonna tell me about a skinwalker?
I can.
All right, cool.
Well, we'll get right into it then. So without further ado, right? We like to say
Without
that on this show.
ado.
Yeah, so this one's called If Missing Livestock Returns, Kill It Immediately. So I thought it was a funny title, but it's actually a very creepy story. So when I was 23, I had a security gig on a dairy farm outside of Ohio. It was a modest place, only holding a few dozen cows at any given time. My then coworker, a 34-year-old recovering meth addict named Corey, had just been fired for letting a cow go missing on his watch. A fireable offense in every sense of the word. For starters, Corey was insane. By the time I met him, his drug-induced psychosis had rendered him virtually schizophrenic. On long nights spent with him during my training period, he'd tell me about CIA agents that were out to get him. He was convinced that they were broadcasting thoughts into his head via electromagnetic waves, and they would not stop at anything to ruin his life. More than once, I'd catch him glancing over his shoulders or peeking out of the windows with a dumb look on his face, hoping to catch a glimpse of whoever was following him. That was the type of person Corey was. Each of our cows had an ear tag labeled with a number. At 8 p.m., they were each to be guided into their respective stalls and locked in for the night. Padlocks became the norm after an incident with local kids a few years ago. In mornings, we'd have to carry around a clipboard containing each lock combination and individually release each one. It made for an annoying way to start the day, but the cows were a hell of a lot more secure that way. That's what made Corey's story so unbelievable. He had claimed that the previous night, cow number 29 had been locked away in her stall with the others. He told us the only thing out of the ordinary that night was an obnoxious bat stuck in the rafters that he planned to deal with in the morning. In order for his claim to be true, an intruder would have had to unlock the barn with a set of keys, unlock 29 stall with the correct combination, and then reset both of the locks and leave undetected. Either that, or they picked up a 1,600-pound animal and leaped through a window. Considering Corey's nasty habit of abandoning his duties in order to twitch and hallucinate in the corner, a small part of me believed that he was a two-bit thief, that a two-bit thief would have been able to pull this one over him. My boss, however, a 50-year-old hothead, concluded that Corey must have been involved in the cow's disappearance and promptly kicked him to the curb. With no one else in his position, my boss had offered to pay me extra for each of his duties that I could complete until we'd received a new hire. Naturally, I agreed. I'd be heading back to school in a few weeks and needed all the money I could get. My first night back at work began normally. Since I'd now be doing the work of 2 security guards, I arrived early to get a head start on Corey's checklist. I started by sweeping out the barn. Farmhands tried to keep the TMR in a long pile just in front of the stall doors so the cows could eat through the night. But that stuff was practically painted the floor by the time I got there. Midway through, I noticed something reflective in the corner of the barn. I lazily swept a loose bit of corn and hay over to investigate. On the floor before me was a neon yellow ear tag. I picked it up to examine. 29. Next to 29's ear tag was skeletal remains of a bat. I'm guessing that's just another thing Corey never got around to dealing with. I swept at the bones along with the rest of the barn, and by the time I was finished, it was already 8 p.m. I made my way out to the fields and then one at a time guided each cow to its assigned stall. I got through about 10 or so before I noticed something strange. Across the field, about 50 meters away from the others, was a lone cow. It faced away from me, seemingly transfixed on a nearby cornfield. Seeing a cow on its own is nothing strange in itself. They just take some personal space, the same as people do. What was strange was the way that her tail struck straight out from behind her, unwavering. She stood as if she was afraid to slip, with her feet planted apart. Perhaps the strangest thing of all is her head appeared to be tilted at a 90-degree angle. I wasn't eager to tell my boss. They put down many sick cows before, but losing 2, in a matter of fact, a week before was enough to send him over the edge. I decided to save that cow for last as I continued to guide the rest of them in for the night. Being in charge of twice the amount of cows I was used to is time-consuming. It took me almost an hour to round them all up. By the time I'd locked number 36 for the night, it was 9 o'clock. I should have been making my rounds by then, especially given the circumstances. I just had that last cow to deal with. While contemplating how long it was going to take me to unlock each cow in the morning, I realized something that made my blood run cold. The only stall left empty was number 29. I shuffled to the field. Sure enough, she was there. She hadn't moved an inch since I'd started the process of moving the cows. I approached her slowly. It was surreal seeing a creature frozen in such an opposition. As I came up to her, I could hear definite but muffled chittering. It's unlike any noise I've ever heard from a cow. What the heck did you eat? I thought to myself. I whistled to the cow before approaching her to avoid startling her. On a dime, the chittering ceased. The cow's left ear rose to face the sky and began to oscillate rhythmically like the periscope of a submarine. I could tell that moving this one was going to be a challenge. I rubbed the back and attempted to soothe her. Bonding is key to establishing any sort of relationship with an animal. I've never interacted with 29 before, so she was unfamiliar with me. Her skin felt bizarre, like clay with hide draped over it. I walked around to see her face. Her eyes were peeled open, darting about rapidly. Her mouth hung open and drooped to the side. I examined her left ear, searching for a place to reinsert her tag, but there was no piercing. I strapped a halter to 29's mouth and began to lead her. It was like trying to uproot a tree with a bike chain. Each tug I gave was fruitless. I began to put my weight into it. Still no luck. When I say no luck, I don't mean that 29 wouldn't follow me. I mean that the body showed zero sign of being affected by my body weight whatsoever. Cows are strong creatures. They're not made of stone. I was perplexed. After 15 minutes of this, I decided that it was useless to continue on. With the clock ever ticking, I could no longer afford to neglect my rounds. I began to walk to the security post to collect my flashlight and get on with the night. As I pondered life's choices while dancing my way through a minefield of cow patties, I heard a slow trotting. I looked behind me to see that the cow had in fact moved. 29 was now facing me. Not so shy now, I wondered. I turned around and continued towards the gate. When I made it about halfway through the field, I began to hear the trotting again. It was louder and much quicker this time. I smiled to myself. Wish I had walked away sooner. Without turning to face the cow, I walked into the barn and began fumbling with 29's padlock. 3 left, 32 right, 23 left. As the lock clicked open, I heard the footboards behind me creak. A slow vocal droning noise turned to a sickly gurgle. Hope to God whatever you've got isn't contagious, I said as I was spinning around. All the color drained from my face as I was greeted with the sight of an 8-foot-tall beast standing behind me on its hind legs. Its ears flapped rapidly like a hummingbird's wings. Its head was cocked sideways with one eye focused on me. Its pupils seemed to grow and shrink rapidly as it scanned my entire body. Its lower jaw started moving up and down as it began to vocalize again. It began to creep towards me. its front legs kicking wildly as I attempted to keep balance, all the while making the same noise. I began to feel lightheaded. I grabbed 29's padlock and made a break for the door. The cow began to rapidly stomp behind me. I began to hyperventilate as I sprinted. The rest of the cows were spooked, shaking and jumping around wildly. I slammed the door shut and collapsed the padlock. A sickening boom shook the entire wall of the barn as 29 began to claw at the door. The beast croaked before chittering once more. I backed away from the door slowly, its wooden frame bending and contorting at the sheer force behind it. Without another warning, I turned my back to the barn and ran to my car as 29 began wailing and pounding. Never ended up making any rounds that night. Instead, I started my car and left that place in the rearview mirror. I didn't tell my boss. In fact, I deliberately avoided several of his phone calls because I had nothing to say. I figured it best if I quit the easy way. There are certain things in life that you back you into corners. Silence forces your hands, you know. That's why I'm writing it now. Of course, I still wanted my money. A few weeks later, just before making a 2-hour commute back to the college, I stopped by the farm to pick up my final check. My boss wasn't in the office on Tuesday, so I took full advantage of that situation, granted myself access with the key that I had seen him not so stealthily kick under the rug once or twice. After snagging my check and a few Jolly Ranchers, I got in the car and slowly began to drive away. Out of the corner of my eye, a young farmhand standing in the grazing field caught my attention. "Hey, kid," I shouted, "stay away from the night shift." But he didn't answer. He didn't look at me. He just continued to stare at a pile of bones in front of him. So what do you think of that one, Jess?
Ugh. There were so many parts I was so grossed out at.
Told you it was kind of interesting and disgusting. So
The 8 foot tall thing, I think I would have like peed myself and just tried to run anywhere. Like I think I just would have lost my mind at that point. Like I would not have been a functioning human being.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like
for sure.
the sounds, the guttural no, thank you. As my
Yeah.
son would say, no, thank you.
Now,
No.
that is something I thank God have never had any kind of experience, like, not knowing some kind of creature or skinwalker or whatever. But they always seem to happen on, like, the loneliest of nights, quiet, like, and what is it like? I always heard you don't want to turn your back on them, right? And that's kind of what he did. It's like, well, this weird freaking cow, I'm just gonna walk away.
The
And
poor
then
cow.
that's when, yeah,
I feel bad for the cow.
yeah,
Bad.
yeah, for sure.
Ugh. Yeah, no, that was creepy. That was a good story, Nick.
Oh, thanks.
That was creepy. Uh, yeah. Um, so you had a terrifying Tuesday that you put out to TikTok and Instagram, which, by the way,
Mhm.
for our listeners, if you don't follow us on Instagram or if you have a TikTok and you don't follow us there, please do. It's just That Sounds Terrifying
Yep.
on there. That's the handle for both. We would love to have more people follow and interact with us. Super great. So we can get the word out about our show more.
Mhm.
But this particular Terrifying Tuesday, you asked about Ouija boards. What was the exact question, Nick?
I think it was something along the lines of like, is what is this most terrifying thing that's ever happened to you with the Ouija board or something to that
Yeah.
effect?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or scariest thing, right?
Yeah. So I haven't told the story in years, so I hope I don't, blunder it too much. But it all started it all started when I was in 5th grade. Um, and there was a girl at my school who her mom had gotten her a Ouija board for her birthday, I want to say, or Christmas, something like that. And so she had brought it to school, and we had like it was like heading into some kind of break, maybe summer break or Christmas break. I'm not sure which. I feel like it might have been warm out, so maybe it was summer. but we were heading into a break and they gave us like a free amount of time to like play games, right? Like they were like, bring whatever board game you want. And so this girl brought her Ouija board. And I have always loved like paranormal stuff. Like, I mean, it's been ingrained in me since I was little, probably because like it used to like bother me. So I was excited about this once I found out what it was, which I don't think I knew what it was before she told me, but she was like, you talk to ghosts. And I'm like, well, I do that anyway. So like maybe I could get some
Who
actual
needs a stupid
answers.
game to do that, right?
Yeah, I was just sitting there like, I mean, the only thing the paranormal stuff that I had experienced up until this point had been just scary, scary, scary stuff. It didn't help that my religion taught me that all of these things were evil, 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 and scary, 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 and so, you know, whatever. But I didn't know anything about Ouija boards because nobody in my evangelical community was going to tell me about them. You know, like I'm in 5th grade, they're not going to be like, and you know, stay away from Ouija board. They probably didn't even think that I hung out with kids who knew what it was. Anyways, we set it all up outside the classroom because the teacher was like, just do it out in the hall. And so how the hallway was set up was that it wasn't a very wide hallway, maybe like 8 feet wide. And there were no lockers because we were in elementary school still. We were in 5th grade, so, you know. And the classrooms were just set up, you know, across from each other, right? There was nobody else in this particular hallway. It was just our classroom and the classroom across the hall, and then you go down like 40 feet and there was another 2. But on this particular level, I don't feel like there were a lot of classrooms. I don't know why that matters, but it does, because it was very quiet. So I guess that's why it matters. So it was a very quiet hallway and we started to play, and it was all I remember. I don't remember who all was playing with us. I feel like it was myself, the girl who brought it, and maybe 2 others. It was definitely one other, but it wasn't like a big group of kids, right? So I got to put my fingers on the planchette. She had hers on. I think my friend Steve was with us at the time, and I think he was there too, and yeah, and maybe one other boy. And so it was the 4 of us, I think, now that my brain is jogging. So we were asking it questions, and what do 10-year-old girls and boys want to know? They want to know who likes them, and like, how many people like Jess? How many people like so-and-so? How many people like Steve? How many people like so-and-so? And I remember like the girl who brought the board really liked this boy, and I'm going to use a different name because his name was very distinct. So I'll call him Chris. She liked the boy, Chris, and he happened to be in the classroom across the hall. They were not having a game day, but they were having some kind of free period in there. Like, I don't know what they were doing in their classroom. So anyways, it was spelling stuff out, and like, you know, we were asking it all sorts of other questions. I don't remember what they were other than like, who likes so-and-so, but I do remember this specifically. So the girl asked, does Chris like me? And it went to yes. And she said, if Chris likes me, make him appear right now. And I shit you not. Chris was in that doorway, like literally walked to the doorway. No other kids had been in that door. No other kids from that other classroom had come out at all. There was no reason for it. Like, and the teacher was probably with them. Chris is in the doorway and he goes, hey guys, what's going on? And I will never forget it. It was the creepiest thing. And my jaw dropped. Like, I remember being like, oh my God, this stuff is like, I'm not crazy. This is real.
Right.
This is real. Like, this is, it was insane. And like the planchette was moving, you know, like you never know if somebody's moving.
Yeah.
Right. Like and that was the first time I ever played with a Ouija board. And I didn't know any of the rules. Like I said, there were no proper protections of spiritual protection in place. Like, you know, is very dangerous. So, maybe talk to your kids about not playing sports. But yeah, it was terrifying. And I remember like letting go of the planchette at that moment. And she was like, "No, you got to keep your hand on it. You got to keep your hand on it." And I was like, I don't want to. I don't want this thing to like, I don't know, mainline paranormal shit into my blood. I was very scared. But yeah, Chris was in the doorway and I will never forget it. I remember exactly like it was an exact moment and I was floored. Um, I don't remember anything else that happened at that particular like on that particular day. But and I have a really bad memory when it comes to like my childhood in general, but like
Mm,
certain things like that, like
that would stand out.
oh, they stick out to me and I remember them quite often. Like I will
Yeah.
think about it. Um, so yeah, that's my Ouija board story. It was
Yeah,
weird.
that's crazy. Kind of like I played with Ouija board when I was a kid and stuff like that, and nothing really ever happened to me per
Mhm.
se. And I think I shared on the show that like my parents had done it when they were kids, and I grew up in the same house as like my mom, and my
Right.
dad lived next door. So, but one of the sessions that they said that there was a person buried under the like the furnace in the basement or something over there. But like
Right.
I think I shared it. Like I don't know how that's possible unless like construction worker died and they just buried him there. But in any event, there is one thing that you just made me think of that we were at like a party at this kid's house, and he's like the really cool kid in our in our school because his parents were very well off and he had his own like apartment that was sort of like attached to his house in a way, but like
Dang.
it's completely separate. It's like a studio apartment, had a kitchen, had like his living space, had everything right there. And so someone got it in their mind, let's do Ouija board session. And like I remember distinctly like feeling people push that thing. Like, oh yeah, you were definitely pushing it. Yeah. And like
Yeah.
that was a whole big joke.
Yeah.
But at one point in the session, there was a girl, actually, I liked her a lot when I was that age. And there was four of us on the thing and I was on it. And it we asked the question like, okay, so if you're real, because we were communicating with something, if you're real, then tell something about that girl that no one else like will know that's here or whatever. So it like kind of spelled out this thing that she had like kissed or made out with such and such a guy. And she like got upset, flipped out, all right, and kind of just left. And then started screaming. We're hearing her like scream at this girl, like, why did you tell everybody? Da, 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 da. And like after it all settled, like I didn't even really know exactly the significance of it, but apparently, like to this day, that girl swears she told
No
nobody.
fun.
And no
Yeah.
one remembers hearing or seeing or anything. So that's like the closest that I've had with like a Ouija board experience that I still like, I'm not even 100% sure about, but had some kind of weirdness to it.
Can you imagine just being a ghost and like having to talk to these children?
Stupid kids. Oh yes.
Children.
She
And
was
he's like,
making out with Tommy.
oh
Let me tell you again.
she's gonna get married and have three kids and die at 85. Like, just sitting there, like, so
Yeah.
bored. But these are the only people that can talk to you because you're the
Yeah.
only ones who play with the board. And
Yeah.
you're talking to these 13-year-olds.
It's like your own purgatory. Like before
Yeah,
you go to heaven or
yeah.
hell,
Like,
you have to deal with the teenage population through
that's
Ouija
your
board
hell.
communication.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. That would
That
be.
actually that down does sound terrifying. Like I hope I don't have to do that.
You're trapped for eternity. You're like, oh, son of a. Not
Don't
again.
ask me that
Me, I
question
already
again.
told you she doesn't like you. She's never gonna like you.
Then purposely spin the planchette
Yeah,
around,
planchette.
scare them away so we don't have to talk to you anymore.
Just like push it to the goodbye. Just
Yeah.
goodbye. I don't
Goodbye.
talk to you anymore. Goodbye.
All right. My God. Yeah. Well, good story, Joss. That's brought back memories for me too, but that's crazy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny. That's a fun story.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I guess I will get into without further ado. Is
It's
that
like
our
our
new
t-shirt.
catchphrase?
That's
Without,
like our
yeah,
t-shirt.
yeah, without further
Yeah.
ado.
That sounds
Oh,
terrifying. Without further ado.
yeah, into my story from Reddit, which has nothing to do with Ouija boards. At least I don't recall it being like that. So, okay, this is called I lived in an apartment that was haunted for almost 9 years. And this is like brand new on the site too. It was like a week ago. I'm a female, 34 years old, and this is my story. At around 2006, my cousin moved into an apartment with her new husband. It was only a few blocks away from where I lived with my mom at the time, and my cousin went on to have a baby whilst living in the apartment, and the baby had some health problems, and it turns out he is nonverbal. Aren't all babies nonverbal?
Hmm.
So confused. Um, he must, oh, well, it was in 2006. Okay, so now this baby grew up and he's nonverbal.
It's nonverbal. Hmm.
Got it. Okay. In 2014, I was looking for a place to buy, and my cousin offered her apartment. She wanted to have one more kid, and the apartment was too small. She made an offer that turned out to be really good for both of us, so much so that I was able to pay for the apartment directly to her within a year. And I moved to the apartment in mid 2015. I decorated the place with a mix of new and thrifted furniture, and I had a specific look for what I was going for. For my bedroom, I had a century old wardrobe professionally renovated. It was gorgeous. Everything was fine for a while, but in 2016, I started to have sleep paralysis. I wouldn't see any demons, quote unquote, like some people do, but it was a scary experience nonetheless. I also experienced lucid dreaming quite often without ever trying to. It would just happen. So in 2015, excuse me, in 2017, 2015. I think that's a Taylor Swift reference there. I don't know.
Yeah. You're a Swiftie.
Yeah, I am. No, I mean I'm not really a Swiftie. I just I do like her though. In 2017, I started hearing noises at night. Now, here's the thing. I have 3 cats. So most noises during the night don't scare me in the least. I always think it's a cat or multiple cats acting up. The noise I was hearing was very specific. It came from a corner where the wardrobe was, and it sounded like someone was snoring or breathing heavily whilst sleeping. I tried to rationalize this, but I couldn't explain the noise, and some nights it would bother me so much that I would get up and look for the source. It really felt like someone was asleep in my bedroom with me. And for context, I've had the same neighbors in that apartment for many years, so it couldn't be that suddenly I could hear into their bedroom. I did consider every possibility, though. I was certain the wardrobe was to blame. Maybe it brought something or someone in. So I disassembled the wardrobe and got rid of it, except for the base part of it. I decided to DIY it into a little sofa. I stopped hearing that noise at night and I was pleased. A few weird things would happen now and then, like objects would move or break inexplicably, but the noise was gone and I just think that this is all in my mind. In 2019, I got my 3rd cat. She was a tiny baby. I called her Gigi, and all my cats were indoor cats and had always been. And so was Gigi. She had never had a life outside my apartment, and yet she was extremely skittish. Everything would scare her. She would spend most of her days hiding behind things. To this day, we find it hard to explain her behavior, and I guess some cats are just very anxious. Nothing weird happened in 2020 or 2021, which was good because I was isolated in the apartment all by myself most of the time. Even Gigi was a little less nervous, perhaps because no one was coming or going, like friends or family members. In 2022, I moved to a different country for work, and my cousin, a different one, stayed at the apartment taking care of my cats. Eventually, her son moved in as the apartment was close to his university. So he was living there by himself for a while. One day, he told his mom that he heard a weird noise at night, like someone snoring in the bedroom next to him. His girlfriend never heard anything when she was over, but he was pretty sure he could hear it most nights. Sometime later, he went to the bathroom in the middle of the night and saw a figure standing there. A
Just
woman with a creepy smile on her face. He pretended not to see her and walked back to bed. I honestly have no idea how he didn't run for his life because I would have. Around the same time, Gigi the cat started acting even more weird than usual. She would try hiding in high places, and by doing that, she would end up knocking things over and breaking stuff. She knocked over mirrors, picture frames, even shelving units, and my cousin's son would often find her in unusual spots in the morning, like on top of the kitchen cabinets, which were pretty high and hard to get to, even for a cat. But she seemed determined to hide from or escape from something. In late 2023, I went back to my hometown to empty the apartment. I stayed there by myself with the cats for several weeks whilst packing. One night, I dreamt that I was in bed, just as I was actually in real life, and I was laying on my side FaceTiming my boyfriend. We had cameras on, and at one point, as I looked into my own image on the screen, I saw a woman behind me. I turned around quickly, and suddenly she was above me. I had a weird thought like, there you are, I'm gonna get you. And so I grabbed her around the neck with all my strength and knocked her off to the floor. She disappeared and I woke up. It felt real. And I was kind of proud of myself. I hope she'd get the message. This girl's a badass.
yeah.
I went on with my day feeling pretty good. At night, I was by myself again, but I did feel a little uneasy, so I decided to close the bedroom door and sleep on the couch in the living room. At one point, I was watching something on Netflix, and the cats were peacefully sleeping by my feet, including Gigi. Suddenly, I heard the loudest, craziest noise coming from my bedroom. It was like 1,000 pots and pans had just fallen off all of the shelves. It was insanely loud. My cats jumped off and hid. I walked to the bedroom. I was sure something must have fallen off the shelving unit left in the room. But no, everything was in its place. My heart was racing. My cats were scared. I was trying to rationalize the noise. Maybe it came from another apartment. Then I got a phone call from my mom. She asked if I was okay. She had a weird feeling that I might not be okay. So I tell her what happened just a minute ago, and she tells me to go to her place ASAP. I put my cats in the car, not an easy task because they were freaked out, and I left. I did go back during the day a few more times to finish packing, but never slept there again. It's been several months, and I haven't rented it out or sold it yet, mainly because I feel uneasy about going back there to take photos and such. But I will soon, though. The funny thing is, sometimes people tell these stories and others think it's impossible. You'd live a very long time in a place that is haunted or seems to be. But really, you just try to rationalize the best you can, and the paranormal activity happens intermittently. So it's easy to brush it off as a one off again. Interestingly, I was clinically depressed while living in that apartment, and I did make a lot of bad choices back then. Nowadays, my life is not particularly simple as I permanently live in a different country, have a partner with kids, and work really hard so I can come back to visit my family often. But despite the difficulties, a cloud has definitely lifted and my life is good.
Wow. That's crazy. I started laughing hysterically because I'm like, just go back to bed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could not do that. If I'm the only person in the apartment and there's some woman in there, even like I guess you have to be there to like realize that it was spectral, maybe, but like
He
I'm like, I'm not going
pretended
back to
not
bed.
to see her. Like, what? Pretended
I
not to
don't
see
see
her.
you.
Yeah, like, she's standing there like,
Yeah,
just
it's
a creepy
crazy.
smile, like staring at you. I don't know. I think at this point I would just be very angry that she was there and I'd be like,
Yeah.
get out. Like you don't belong here. Get out. I would do what
Yeah.
this poster did. BOP.
Yeah.
I would be like, get out.
Get
Don't
out.
mess with
Yeah,
me.
or at least call in something, bless the home, kind of
Yeah,
do
yeah. Archangel Michael,
sage the home.
something.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy
stop
though. And
messing with
then
my cat, you jerk. Like,
yeah, you made me think when I was a kid, I used to like watch like friends and families, like animals and stuff like that. And there's one woman's cat that I used to watch when she went away she would go for a long period of time. And and like it was funny because it was just one cat. And I would always have trouble finding this stupid thing. Like, you know, like I'm just concerned that it's like dead somewhere. You know, like I was always worried at doing those jobs because I'm like, I do not want to be the one that watches the pet and it dies while they're away, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So one time, like it happened a couple times after this too, but like I kept finding the cat finally, and it was on top of a bureau. Like, so you were mentioned a bureau. There's no way for this cat to get up there. Like, it's sort of against like the wall. There's nothing near it, and it's
Mm.
too high for any cat to get up there. And there was no scrape marks with the cat clawing up the way and over and stuff. So the way that I found it was I was walking, and it was sort of in the dark, and I felt in the back of my head, you know how a cat goes, "What?" You
Yeah.
know, didn't have its claws out, just hit me in the
Yeah,
back of the
just
head like three
yeah,
times. And of
that's
course,
funny.
like it's dark, and I jump and I turn on the light, and this like glowing eyes like up there is like freaky looking black cat up at the top of the bureau. I'm like, how did you get up there? You know? And so anyways, um, I finally like told her. It was like probably two trips later. I'm like, I don't know how your cat gets up there. And the cat goes underneath the bureau where there was a hole, and then there's a hole at the top of the bureau that they purposely put in there so she could wind her way up to the top because she liked to be at high places. But
Oh,
unless you open the bureau, you're not going to see the hole in the bottom or the hole at the top because it was too
yeah.
tall for me to see. So there was this actual explanation, but
So
it
sweet.
happened to be one other time where it bapped me in the head, and I wasn't expecting it because I really wasn't looking for it. I was getting ready to leave, walking through the room,
Pretty funny
like,
though.
jump.
It just waits for people to walk by.
Yeah. Yeah, my
Love that.
cats do that now, like on the floor, like they look like they're just laying there asleep, but they're not.
Yeah,
They're
they're
waiting to
waiting.
come by.
Yeah, it's they're hunters. They attack.
Yeah, that was a great story, Jess. Like you found that on Reddit.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. So I was like, that's creepy.
Yeah.
I think we've had this conversation before, but I really do not like the old hag stories or like the creepy
Hmm.
smile people. When a smile is too big for your face, like that sort of creepy, like
Yeah.
that's ultimately terrifying to me. I
Hmm.
hate it so much. Um,
Yeah.
it's just so off-putting. You're like, ugh, but like those are like the scariest stories to me. The
Yeah.
most
Yeah. And then like the top hat kind of dark specter kind of ghost with the top hat that like we haven't had a story on our show. We should
of the
look for
Hat
one of
Man.
those. The Hat
Yeah,
Man.
and the
Yeah.
Hat Man doesn't freak me out that much. The Hat Man.
Yeah. Well, there was
But
one that I had heard that it was the Hat Man, but then it had this crazy smile. So that's
okay.
what made me think too. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, no, I picked that one just specifically because it had the creepy girl, the creepy lady, but
yeah.
that poor kitty cat.
So if anyone has stories about, you know, the smile, the big smiling hag, old hag, Hat Man, anything, we want to hear it. Definitely email us at, you know, that sounds terrifying at gmail.com, or share it on social media so that we can kind of get in touch with you. We'll feature it on the show. It'd be really cool to hear what terrifies you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening.
Without further ado, we'll see you next time.